Okay guys, back at it again today, still working with writing equations of circles in standard or general form. Okay, so we did one very similar to this at the end of the last video, so we want to get a couple more in here. All right, so we're going to write the equation of the circle with center at the origin. Okay, all right, so we have this circle. Okay, and its center is at the origin, so the center is at 0, 0. Okay, so we know right off the bat, we know our HK is at 0, 0. Okay, so really what this comes down to is, how do I find that radius? Okay, so you have this point, and it says it goes through the point with coordinates -4, 10, like that. Okay, so all I need is this radius right here, that radius. And remember, no matter where I have that radius in this circle, it's always going to be the same. Okay, so to find this radius, I have to use the distance formula and find the distance from this point to the origin. Okay, so remember, okay, our radius, or the distance, the length of that segment, using the distance formula, I would have to go delta x squared plus delta y squared. Okay, so my radius, so let's see, if I go delta x, if I go, I'm going to go 0 minus a -4, so it's 0 minus a -4, and I've got to square that, plus, obviously I'm going to take square root of the whole thing. Delta y, I'm going to go 10 minus 0, like that. Okay, so let's see, our radius. Okay, well, 0 minus a -4 is 4. 4 squared is 16. And 10 minus 0 is 10. 10 squared is 100. Okay, so our radius is the square root of 116. Okay, now that's not in simplest radical form, but it really doesn't matter because I'm just going to use the radius to come up with the equation of the circle. Okay, if I was just trying to identify what's the center and what's the radius, I would have to put this in simplest radical form. So let's see, I know 116 is divisible by 4. So 116 divided by 4, that's 4 times 29. And obviously 29 is a prime number, so the square root of 29, I can't do anything with it. It's just square root of 29. So I take the square root of 4 and I get a 2, radical 29. Okay, so if I was just trying to figure out, okay, what's the radius of the circle, this would be the answer I'd have to give. Okay, but we're not doing that. We're just, what's the equation of the circle? So I could use this or that for my radius. It doesn't make any difference. Okay, so let's see. We go to our general form. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared, and we just substitute in. Okay, so up here my h and k are both 0, so this is just x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals, and I'm going to use this guy right here. Okay, I would have the square root of 116 squared, and then we just simplify. Okay, so x minus 0 squared, we would just write that as x squared. Y minus 0 squared, we would just write that as y squared. And then when we square root, we get the radicand. So that's just 116. And you have your equation in standard or general form there. Okay, so very similar to the one we did at the end of the video yesterday. Let's get one more of those. Okay, let's see what happens here. Okay, so the center is at 9, 0. Okay, so again, I'm given the HK. Okay, that's at 9, 0. Okay, and so again, I'm not given the radius, so the radius is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I have this circle. Okay, I've got a center at 9, 0. Okay, and I have some point on it somewhere at 0, -7. So over here somewhere. Okay, so my radius is right here. Okay, so again, I've got to find the distance from the center to that point. Okay, so my radius using the distance formula would just be the square root of delta x squared plus delta y squared. Okay, so let's see, delta x, I'm going to go 9 minus 0. And then let's see, delta y, I'm going to go 0 minus negative 7. Okay, so simplifying that, 9 minus 0 is 9, 9 squared is 81. Let's see, 0 minus negative 7 is 7, so 7 squared is 49. Okay, so I'm going to get my radius as the square root of 130. Okay. Now, radical 130 is in simplest radical form because you figure this would be the square root of 10 times 13. And the square root of 13, 13 is a prime number, you can't do anything with it. Square root of 10, well, 10 is 2 times 5, so we'd have the square root of 2 times 5 times 13, and there is nothing we can do to form a perfect square, so that's it. This is in simplest radical form. Okay, so we go to our general formula, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, so my h is 9, so x minus h becomes x minus 9 squared plus, all right, y minus k, well, k is 0, so this becomes y minus 0 squared equals, my radius is radical 130. Okay, so let's see, x minus 9 squared, I can't really do anything with that, so we just leave it as x minus 9 squared. Right here, y minus 0 squared is the same as y squared, so we can drop the minus 0. And then when you square root, you get the radicand, so when I square radical 130, I just get 130. Okay, and there we go. There's your equation in standard form. Okay, so easy enough, not hard. Let's try one more similar to this, but a little bit different. Okay, so let's see. We want to identify the center and radius of the circle. Okay, all right, so if we take a look at this, okay, remember we're thinking in terms of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, so notice you just have x squared. So that guy would be like x minus 0 squared. And notice you have y squared, so that guy would be like y minus 0 squared. Okay, so if that's the case, this is your h right here. Okay, the number being subtracted from x. This is your your k right here, the number being subtracted from y. Okay, so our center ends up being 0, 0, or the origin. Okay, so I identify the center. All right, now I need the radius. Now notice this 36 right here. Okay, well that is r squared. I need r. Okay, so to figure out r, I got to take the square root. Okay, so my radius ends up being the square root of 36. And obviously 36 has two square roots, positive 6 and negative 6, but we're dealing with length here. The radius is a segment length, so I would only want the positive one. So my radius is positive 6. Okay, so let's see. I identified the center and the radius, so I got that. Now it wants me to graph this guy. Now if you want to graph it on graph paper, that's fine. I'm not going to bother with it. I'm just going to make a quick sketch. Okay, so we know we have the center at the radius. The center, okay, is at the origin. Okay. Okay, so I've got my center right here, and that guy's at 0, 0, and my radius is 6. That means I'd have to go 6 to the right and 6 to the left. Okay, and then I'd have to go 6 up and 6 down. Okay, and so we get this, and it's not going to be perfect. I can promise you, my graphing skills aren't all that good. okay? And so we get this guy. It sort of looks like that, and boy, that's not all that good. Now remember, your radius here, r equals 6. Okay, so if I go 6 to the right of the origin, that would put me at 6, 0. Okay, so that point right there where the circle touches the x-axis is at 6, 0. And if I go 6 to the left, that would put me at negative 6, 0. Okay, so that point's at negative 6, 0. Then I'd have to go 6 up. Okay, so that would put me at 0, 6. Okay, right there. And then I would go 6 down, so that would put me at 0, negative 6. And you got a graph. And it's, you know, I don't have that much artistic ability, so my graph is okay. Okay, it's not awesome, but it's good enough. But the important thing is here, you label the center and you label these 4 intercepts where the circle crosses the x-axis here and here, and then crosses the y-axis here and here. Okay, that'll wrap it up for today, and we'll do a couple more of these in a video tomorrow. Okay, you guys stay safe, and I miss all of you.